Welcome everybody to the Kid Casper podcast. I'm your gracious, beautiful, blessed, beloved, and black host, the kid they call Casper. The KID in Kid Casper stands for King of Development. I'm that menace with the melanin. Reject me as I am, as long as he is still relevant. Y'all know why we're here today. I've made it very, very clear on yesterday's episode. This is something that one of me and my new little sisters I've adopted through the interweb. Mama told me not to talk to talk to strangers on the internet, but here I am. This was something that has been really near and dear to my heart, as far as trying to closing the gap, as far as anti-Blackness, anti-Asian in both communities. At the same time, we're not going to also forget about like the Hispanic community. And we have people in which are really good friends to the channel. Yes, like Casper the friendly ghost. Not really though. Somebody in the comment section already picking on me. But we felt like it was important, especially after the events that happened on Tuesday in Atlanta, where 8 people lost their lives. 6 of the 8 happened to be members of the Asian American community. And honestly, it would be irresponsible not to have this conversation. So I've hit up a couple of the people that I'm close to. I hit up some, once again, random people I just met on the internet, and I thought that they could share their thoughts. I have my business partner / best friend here today with me. Melanie, what's up? Take yourself off mute real quick. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, what's up? Thank you again for having me on tonight.
And we got a couple of other people. Got my sister Jordan from North Kakalaka. I'm trying to remember which area she's from. I got returning guest Jonathan from, I think you're in New York, if I'm not mistaken. You're muted, dog. We can't hear you. New York. Got my sister Sarah, who lives in Oklahoma, unfortunately. I mean, all y'all have is college sports. That's about it. And then I got my sister Mai from California. So
what's up?
So for those that are new to the channel and new to the screen, we're just gonna have y'all. Oh wait, and I forget my brother. Got my brother X over here. You were hiding in the dark, brother. I couldn't see you for a second. I'm sorry. I
Special skill of mine.
It's
the
lighting. I promise.
It's the lighting.
Oh man. Well, since I picked on you a little bit and you went last, for the newest people to the channel, I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourself, starting with Brother X. Tell us what you're about, man.
How you doing? My name's X-Ray Mega Man. I also go by X-Ray Pro on Instagram. I like anime. I like nerdy stuff. I'm usually talking about like comics and games and all that stuff. But I also have a more serious side for issues like this. And I'm one of the more kind of, energetic, this makes me angry, so I'm going to talk about it for the folks who are exhausted with this. And I feel like, letting it sit for too long, letting it be like, oh, well, that's not me. I can't do that, because people don't deserve to go through stuff like this. So, and conversations like this are important to help prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I definitely couldn't agree more. And then I got my sister from North Kakalaka, Queen Jordan. Tell us what you're about, my sister.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan. I go by Jordan Simone on Instagram and TikTok. And I try to focus most of what I do and most of my energy in conversations around intersectionality and how different forms of oppression impact different people in different ways. And then have conversations around how we dismantle all those systems of oppression, what makes a good ally, what makes a good activist, what makes a good accomplice. All those different conversations, because in my mind, nobody's free until we're all free. And that means we need to have these different conversations with all these different levels. So very excited to be here. Very blessed to be included in a conversation with such wonderful, amazing people.
And I can't let you slide on this. I found out you're from Greensboro, North Carolina, correct?
Yes, Greensboro, the good 336.
Okay. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, one of my sisters from my community group is from Greensboro. So if you see somebody get excited in the chat, to your left, to your right, then yeah, you'll be super excited. Also, given this time to kind of check in on returning guests, I got you pinged up first, Sarah. How are you doing today?
I've been better, in all honesty.
Yeah.
With the recent news, it has definitely been extremely hard to swallow and to talk about and to really just think. So.
Well, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy that we're doing this, and I'm happy that you hit me up about, I think it's like a month ago since we've been trying to keep this conversation going. So that's what's up. Sister Mai, how are you doing? You're muted. I got you, my sister.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
ahead.
Doing okay. It's been a lot to kind of process recently. It's just been really crazy. Processing a lot of anger, frustration, feeling unheard, all, just the usual feelings after a hate crime. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, I feel you for sure. And then Brother Jonathan in NY, how you doing today, boss?
I'm all right. Lately, we've been seeing an uptick in folks trying to join the Black and Asian Alliance Network because of what happened on Tuesday. And so just trying to navigate the conversations and bring people into the fold.
Hold on real quick. If I'm tripping, make sure it ain't just me. Anybody else hear a hot mic on Jonathan's end? Yeah, brother, your mic is not with us. He's not. It is not one of us. It sounds like it got tossed in the microwave or something crazy like that.
This happened last time, didn't it?
I don't know what it is with you, man. It's like you had the professional one that wasn't trying to work with you. It just sounds like the audio feed may be turned up too high, possibly.
Hello?
Yeah, you sound crazy. Yeah, it don't sound good at all, actually.
Take this out.
Yeah, we'll try to get that situated. Anyway, but yeah, are you talking now? Is that what's going on? No? Yes?
I am. Do you hear me?
Okay, cool. That sounds so much better. Whew, thank you, Jesus.
That's weird because we had an entire sound check where I used that same mic and it wasn't doing that 10 minutes ago, but okay.
I don't know, man. It must be I don't know. Are you a Knicks fan? Because I'm a Knicks fan, so sometimes
I don't know.
technology turns on me.
Maybe you're not a Knicks fan, or maybe you're just anti-New York, because every time I come on this happens. So just kind of weird.
Hold on, brother. Let me tell you how true of a Knicks fan I am. Okay, I have.
You don't have to, because I'm not a sports fan. I don't do sports, so I'm not.
Wow, you're just. I mean, you can kind of go. You don't really have to come back, but that's all right. I'm just messing with you, brother. But yeah, man, if you are new to the channel, hello, I go by Kid Casper, aka Mr. Lee with Love on all my social media. I'm a Christian raptivist. Yes, that means rapper / activist. I lead an interfaith coalition in the state of Maryland where we are trying to make change within the system, within society, workplaces, you name it. Let's see, I own my own clothing apparel at ghostreds.com. I'm a taco enthusiast. I'm trying to think of other things. I like Sonic the Hedgehog. One of my favorite rappers is Nipsey Hussle, and I like to love the Lord and fight for my people. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm fighting for people that don't look like me and do look like me. Because at the end of the day, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So that's why we're here, to see what we can do as far as keeping the conversation going, trying to close in the gap, which is impacting our communities. Also sharing our thoughts on some of the crap that's going on around the world today. So we're just going to kind of get into it. So I don't know if this might make people laugh. I don't know if this seems semi-inappropriate, but as far as content goes for myself, after last weekend where all this crap happened from, Oklahoma with sportcasters calling black women effing niggers, this is that and the third, and Kirk Franklin and everything like that. I have this thing where I only record, as far as podcast goes, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But there was so much crap that happened between the weekend. And, for me to just kind of give my black thoughts on this matter, I came up with this goofy, I don't know if it's inappropriate. It might make white fragility act up. I don't know. might need to get something checked for that. We are going to introduce this is, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, the friendly neighborhood Negro news. All right, so as far as, unless you've been living under a rock, and I don't know how you can do that at this point, on Tuesday there was an act of violence. It reeked of white supremacy, it reeked of privilege, and it was just domestic terrorism at its best or at its worst. I don't really know. I mean, white supremacy birthed this country, and it was birthed on bigotry and hatred. We had a lovely discussion yesterday on how America was discovered or founded. And me as a black man, I can't just go outside and discover somebody's car when they already own it. So I don't really know how you discover something that wasn't yours to discover to begin with. Anyway, so we heard some of the comments, and we've heard some of the, I guess, the justifications for what happened, in which 8 people were murdered, 6 of them being Asian American. And the reasoning for this happening was at the hands of a white man who's a Christian, mind you. You know, his story's all online, where he grew up in youth group. He was such a pillar within like the church and everything like that. He's a lovely man of God. He's a lovely man of God, just like our last president was a lovely man of God. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so this young child of God, this is the way the media is trying to paint it. This child of God had been suffering from sex addiction issues. So him as a Christian, in his mind, how he's rationalized this, more like radicalized this, decided to shoot up these massage parlors in which 8 people are now dead, and there's going to be 8 different funerals, and that doesn't even point out how many hearts are broken at this matter, whether you were blood or water to these people. Two reasons I decided to bring this up today, and I would love to hear from my 2 sisters first about this, from the Asian American community, is because there's this issue with over fetishize, not even over. I think the fact that there's any period is what makes it bad. Fetishization or fetishization, hopefully I am saying it right, and correct me if I'm wrong, of Asian women in the Asian community. Apparently they should be, flattered. They should be happy that somebody looks at them in this manner. But from what I've heard, and I myself as a black man don't like being fetishized, it's dehumanizing. But I'm not going to keep mansplaining and blacksplaining what Asian women feel about this. So I'm going to ask either one of my Asian sisters your thoughts on this matter. Either one of y'all can go first.
You want to go, or shall I go?
It looks like you picked up the mic first.
Yeah, so it's so frustrating to hear how the media is interpreting this. And I actually made a TikTok about this yesterday. So much of the media is interpreting this as like this guy who's just like the sex-driven maniac. He just like happened to pick up some Asian ladies and shoot them because he was so sexually frustrated. First of all, like, as a mental health professional, as a therapist, like, sex addiction is like very controversial. That whole term and that concept is not really like a real thing. What is really probably the issue behind that is like impulse control, sexual frustration. My understanding is that he's a Southern Baptist, and there's a lot of controversy about that religion and how it doesn't allow for sexual release or just being sexual at all. So there's a lot of controversy about that. And then tying that into Asian women, how the hypersexualization and fetishization of Asian women as being submissive, the lotus blossom, the dragon lady, submissive and weak, and then him taking that anger out specifically on Asian women is such an obvious sign of an intersectional hate crime. Yet it's so frustrating to hear how the media is portraying it as just this guy that's just sexually frustrated. It's both. It's both. It doesn't have to be just a sex crime. It's both. It's a racially motivated sex crime. And I don't understand why it's so hard for people to understand this.
Sarah, you got anything?
So the fact, even though that they said that, oh, he had a sex addiction, was it the way he viewed Asian women just in general, he saw them as a sexual temptation. And I think in quotes, when I covered this in a TikTok where he said he wanted to eliminate that temptation. And so at the end of the day, he's saying that he just saw Asian women as a sexual temptation. And so I got into all of this TikTok wise, talking about these important things because I ended up getting fetishized by someone very close to me. And I don't know if you've heard about him, but actually just recently he has told me that he never fetishized me and that I should have moved on. He invalidated everything I said when there is actual proof that he had a list of Asian women he quote unquote wanted to fuck with. And he said, and he made other Asian women feel extremely uncomfortable with what he has done. And he has an extremely high platform. It feels like when I keep trying to say that you did these things, you need to at least understand that, like, you did this, you hurt people, and it's not a good thing. Like, there are consequences. He's like, I just care about getting canceled, really. And that is what is so frustrating when I try and tell people about, you know, fetishization. It's not a compliment. It's not a good thing. I've gotten like, at least people like you, am I right? Or, you know, I always wish I could have been fetishized. It is just annoying.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm still kind of learning a lot of this. So as far as like learning it, because I myself obviously have been not only Black my whole life, but I've also been a male my whole life. So I'm a cisgender straight man. So I don't know about some of these things that people are going through, and that's my privilege and my ignorance. So on this subject, when it comes to women being dehumanized by being fetishized, I'm not really going to give much of my thoughts. I'm here to simply retweet and amplify. I'm not really willing to give my 2 cents on the matter. But the other women on the panel, if y'all wanted to share your thoughts on this matter, you are more than welcome to it. Y'all so polite. Come on.
I do want to say one thing, though. I think it's really important that men stand up against misogyny, fetishization, and hypersexualization. Like, we need men to call out men. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking all the men here to, when you see something like this happen, when you hear somebody say like, oh, I love all Asian women, they're so sexy, like, shut that shit down. Shut it down.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not okay, you know? When people are, even with like Latinx women and like other women in general, like there's all these like weird like sexual perversities that people have and like correlate with different like POC women, and it's just shut it down. And not even just like with POC women, with all women. Like, you hear all these nasty remarks that people make about women, like, oh, look at her, she's such a bitch, like, because she's assertive. I'm sorry. You hear all these people getting rape and death threats for speaking out on TikTok or on social media, yet the men who say the same exact things don't get the same threats. They actually get, you know, they actually get idolized. They're like, oh, the men are like, oh, thank you so much for speaking out on this platform. And when the women are getting death and rape threats, like, that's not okay. We need to be calling this out.
I think the problem is, and where a lot of people, and I always say this as an example, white men can't tell me what racism is. You know what I'm saying? I think the problem is, and what I've seen and me going back and forth, and I've had to cut people out of my life, is men think that they can weigh in on what's misogynistic or not. You know what I'm saying? Even though we've been doing misogyny wrong for years, you know what I'm saying? So I do my share in calling it out, but I'm more so like, okay, because I'm grown up in this culture, I obviously need to unlearn what I think is truth and listen to you guys more. So I'm willing to call out whatever needs to be called out, but I'm still learning as it is. So I got no problem speaking the truth. I just know that I think that is what the issue is, but it's not an excuse. I think that we get caught up in, well, I've been like this my whole life. Cool, unlearn it. You know what I'm saying? It's time to unlearn it, because you're not the one that needs to deal with the brunt end of it. Anybody else? Somebody else got something?
Yeah, I think about that a lot when I think about the most recent study about how 97% of women have experienced sexual assault or sexual harassment, and how those numbers are influenced by being a person of color, especially, well, actually any and all women, but especially women of color, and what that experience looks like and how it's like to be fetishized. Sometimes being fetishized is a very quiet passive activity, like the way that like the Black female body is constantly fetishized, although no one ever feels comfortable talking about it, to the very overt, very aggressive, hypersexual fetishization of like the Asian woman's body or the Latino woman's body, or any female's body is always hypersexualized. And all of our negative experiences, all of us are wrapped up in that 97%. What do those numbers really look like within those communities of color? And so when I talk to the men in my life about what it looks like to be an ally, I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of well, I don't want to be called out. I don't want to be canceled. Now I have to watch how I talk to women about these certain things. And it's like, if we felt more comfortable having these conversations in the first place, if we were willing to have these conversations where it's like, we all were raised in a patriarchal, misogynistic society. You learn these things. Now it's time to unlearn them. And we had honestly, more men calling these things out. I think that would be very beneficial at this point. It's all a part of I will tell you, and now you go tell your homeboys, because they're not going to come listen to me, or they're not going to come listen to her, or they're not going to believe the numbers in the 97%. Like, somebody made a TikTok today and they were like, oh yeah, like 1% of men, or men think that 1% of men rape, although 97% of women have been assaulted. And it's like, it's not one guy running around the world really fast. It's your homie, it's your neighbor, it might be your uncle. Like, you have to be willing to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations to do the work of unlearning and dismantling this kind of harm. Because otherwise we see stuff like this. And this is the epitome of like intersectional oppression. Like, this right here is what that looks like. So call out your homies, long story short.
That's something that I touched on yesterday, especially when it comes to like Black women and brown women. Is it's one thing to you're already a Black woman or a brown woman in these spaces, but you're also a woman, so you're actually a double minority in these situations. So, and I'm not to say like you guys need more help than anybody else, but because these things happen a lot more than people realize, and we don't know the names to all these victims because some of them don't get the attention that they deserve. So that's something that I always have to keep in mind when it's like, we focus on these names that get the most publicity and everything like that. But there's so many stories that get covered for other people's convenience, and it's not right. It's just not right at all.
Jordan, I really like what you said about how like we need men to call out their friends, because like this is very similar to like how we need to dismantle racism, is that we need to tell white people, right, like this is what's happening and this is what's wrong, and they need to tell their fellow white people, because they're not listening to us. And that's the same with men. Men are not listening to us. But in order to dismantle this patriarchal society, we need men to help dismantle it. We need white people to dismantle this hierarchy and system of white supremacy. Like, we need these people, but we need them to also listen to us.
Anybody else? I'm gonna pick on my best friend real quick. Chi, you got something to share with us?
Yeah, so I've noticed that, like, with the whole fetishizing, I'm sorry, my mouth is dry, but like I noticed that when it comes to that, there's almost like that disappointment with the other party if you don't exactly fit that mold, if that makes sense. Like, for example, me being Afro-Latina, like the first person I ever dated, kind of fetishized me, thinking like, I would be that, spicy Latina that would always call him Poppy. And it's like, no, or that would be like this fiery person. But really, I'm just a chill, down to earth person that just wants to watch anime. I don't know why you assume that I'm going to be this caricature of what a Latina or an Afro-Latina is supposed to be, or like how Asian women are supposed to be seen as this super kawaii person, when it's like they're not a character, they're actually a human being, or it's just insane. But yeah, you'd be surprised about how many times I've heard that. But also, me being a film student, I've also realized that in the film industry, especially, there's always like you're almost categorized in a role you're supposed to be because of your ethnicity, you know, like you're always supposed to be this kind of person or that kind of person. But then when you're just written as a regular person, people are like, you're whitewashing them. I'm like, but why are they whitewashing them if they're just being a normal freaking person, you know?
I don't know who else I want to bring up in this.
I
Sister
can.
Jordan, go ahead.
I'd like to add on to that because I think a lot about like how portraying people as stock characters is actually extremely dehumanizing. It's why I think people have a hard time connecting to the experiences of people of color in general, but especially women of color. And then to add a layer on top of that, women of color who are also sex workers. They are so dehumanized at that point that we do not take these situations seriously until they hit an extreme. And so I think a lot about, I was watching this one documentary this one time about it was like the Ripper from from England came back for like the remix essentially. And he was targeting sex workers, and it took 10 years longer to catch this person because he was targeting sex workers, and therefore no one valued sex workers' lives. And so it took until he had killed a couple of innocents for somebody to care. And so I wonder just how long that this person in this scenario has gone around harassing Asian women, assaulting Asian women before it got to this point where we were literally forced to care. And if he had only killed one as opposed to 8, how would we still care? How would that still impact us? Because being fetishized strips us so entirely of our identity. It strips us down to our bare sexual characteristics, or it strips us down to one stereotypical trope. Like if you're not the angry Black woman and you're not the super curvy Black woman, then you're automatically a white girl and you're going to be an Oreo for the rest of your life. That's where that puts us. Or like for Black men, I know that Black men are constantly fetishized and nobody ever wants to talk about that because we don't like to talk about men being impacted by the patriarchy. But Black men are constantly being fetishized. And because we also have such an uncomfortable relationship with sex when we're talking about men and how they're supposed to always be sexual, we don't get to give them the grace to be human beings either. And so this is very much a two-way street where like we are being impacted largely and the most by misogyny as women of color, but men, and especially men of color, are also being impacted by this. And so by talking about it and giving back our humanity to each other, we can get a little bit closer to dismantling these systems. But until we recognize that this impacts me, this impacts you, this strips all of us of our personhood, we're going to do this again and again and again. And I'd like to stop doing this because it makes me sad for my homies.
Yeah, definitely. I also want to, sorry, go ahead, Casper.
No. Hey, what I say? I'm not speaking over women. I'm here to amplify and retweet. Go ahead, my sister. You all right?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, going along with the over-sexualization and hypersexualization of Black men, the what is it? What's the opposite of that? The desexualization of Asian men also like plays a huge role in here as well. And that's like plays a huge part in the patriarchy. I was actually reading some history about that and the background on that. And it was because like so many Chinese, Filipino, and Japanese workers came over here, laborers came over here to work. And because there was such a huge influx of men who came over, and because of the Page Act and a lot of other acts, the women were not allowed to come here basically because they assumed that Asian women were prostitutes. And because of that, a lot of the Asian men were starting to date white women. And because of that, white men felt so scared, felt so it demasculated that this whole trope of Asian men being desexual, being asexual, like not having any sexual prowess or things like that started to come into play. And so again, like that just plays right into the patriarchy, plays right into misogyny. And it's also connected. We are all impacted by the patriarchy.
One of the things that me and Sarah were talking about offline was the person who's doing the evil in this situation, as far as like fetishizing people, doesn't get the right to say it's a big deal or a little deal or not, because it can start off small. Like, as you just said, and I even feel dirty even uttering the words out my mouth. But like when you start fetishizing somebody, it's like, oh, well, it's just a little compliment. It's just me flirting. And they don't realize like the gravity in which it can grow to, where it can go from a comment in an Instagram to what we just saw happen in Atlanta, where he felt like he was ridding himself of the evil in some sense, and people's lives had to pay the cost for it. Sarah, do you have anything to kind of expound on what we were talking about yesterday? You like muted yourself and unmuted yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? I'm gonna take that as a yes. Yeah, so I was talking with you the other day about, so I'm just going to go ahead and say the person. It was Karma. If you don't know who Karma was, he was, you could say, an activist for the Asian community, but we found out later on that he had lied about his ethnicity, things in his past, and he also fetishized Asian women by kind of ranking them, making them feel uncomfortable. He was in this group called 60 Shades of Hearts, and it was actually the leader who, I don't like saying this word, but like exposed him, you know. And that's when it all kind of came crashing down as reality for me. Everything during it was great. There were red flags, but I never noticed. I didn't want to notice, I guess. And when it came crashing down, I confronted him. And he really told me that, like, he didn't want to talk about it. He was in pain. He was going through his own things. But the thing is, we all have gone through some pain, but that doesn't give us any right to hurt another person. And then going on through it, this happened in January to me. And I said that, hey, I don't think it's your place right now to talk on Asian matters, considering what you have kind of done to the Asian community and the people that you have hurt, made feel uncomfortable. But then he began posting again about it with his high following. He has a following of over 1.1 million followers, which he gained from what he had talked about from some of his videos where he actually ranked ethnicities that he considered the hottest in Asia. So, and I was just like, hey, I really don't think this is your place right now. And he's like, oh, but my followers want me to do this. They want me to do this. I'm like, you fetishized a lot of women. It's like, no, I didn't. I didn't fetishize you. I'm like, yeah, you did. He's like, you should have gotten over it actually at this point. I never did any of that thing. And I just, the fact that it was in there, that there was fetishization, even though so little, so how you could say, I don't know, micro, I don't know if I'm even saying the right words, but looking at it now, that it can spiral to such a point of these 6 women are dead because this man fetishized him. That is the story. And it's like not a lot of people are talking on that I feel. They're not actually, they're thinking of it, yes, it is a hate crime, but they're not looking into it, saying that he fetishized these Asian women, and this is why he killed them. He may have been a sex addict or had some mental problems, but at the end of the day, he also fetishized these women, and they're dead. There's no bringing them back at this point. And I broke down this morning. I woke up and I mentally could not do it. I got on a live because I just have to address these things, what I'm feeling in the moment. And I have to say that, why is this acceptable? Why is the fetishization, when people are trying to tell you that it's dehumanizing, it is worse than dehumanizing. It kills people, as we have seen. It has fucking killed people.
You better talk. You all right. It's okay. Let it out. I mean, for real, nobody like, and I told you yesterday when we weren't even online, nobody can tell the cut how to bleed in this situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here to invalidate your experience or whatever you've gone through, and this is why this needs to be talked about. And I just want to commend you, give you your flowers, and let you know that it takes a lot of strength and vulnerability to even speak on this matter, especially since it's deeply impacted you personally. So don't feel ashamed of yourself. Don't think that you're weak for getting tears. You are a human being, and you are entitled to have every emotion just like everybody else, especially when you are hurting right now. And I just wanted to say that to you real quick. All right. Got
Yeah.
this.
Thank you. It's just when I was younger, at some point I became very whitewashed. I grew up in a white community. I'm adopted. My parents are white, and I never wanted to ever identify as Asian because at the time there are the stereotypes that we have to be the smart people, we're good at math, and I fell in, and I wanted to be so much a part of that, but I could never fit the mold. So I was, I was written off as the dumb Asian who was never like smart enough. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to like just try and I guess be a basic white girl. And then but there were guys who started liking me because I was Asian. They started saying that, oh, you're so foreign, you're so exotic, you're so, it's just all these dehumanizing things that when growing up, now that I look back on things, I'm like, God, what the hell is wrong with some people? Why have we grown up with this? And I do blame a lot that has gone on in the media and how they have, I guess, and you could say shows portrayed a lot of people of color too.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I totally hear what you're saying. People, it's so hard when you grow up in like a primarily white community, especially if you're a transracial adoptee, because on the one hand, you are growing up in a white family, so you're going to assimilate with that culture. And on the other hand, but you're never going to be white enough, and then on the other hand, all the Asian people are saying, look at you, you're so whitewashed. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're so lame. And I grew up in a primarily white suburb. My family is Japanese though. And I remember just like wanting to be accepted, but it was so hard because I was never Asian enough and I was never white enough. And there were so many of these stereotypes that were constantly being placed upon me, like as an Asian woman, like you're this kind of person and you're that kind of person. And so a lot of what I did growing up was just like be the opposite, like consciously do the opposite of what I knew these stereotypes were about. Like if an Asian woman is supposed to be meek, then no, fuck that. I'm going to be really outspoken. I'm going to be super assertive. And an Asian woman, can't drive. No, I'm going to be really good at driving. So I've always been curious to hear about other women of color's experience, especially those who grew up in a primarily white environment, because I would always wondered, how much of that has influenced how we portray ourselves now, or like how we have grown up. How has that impacted what we allow ourselves to be seen as?
I think the one thing that's really upsetting about all of this, honestly, is, well, actually not the one thing. There's a lot of things that's upsetting about this. And I'm curious what my brother X and my brother Jonathan feel about this. And I don't know if anybody else saw this. I think it was NBC that said it, if I'm not mistaken. After this happened, the police chief gave a explanation in which why this crime happened. NBC decided to release an article. This blows my freaking mind. They decided to release an article that says how African Americans can help the Asian community during this time. Here's the damn thing. Why the hell is it being pushed to like our corner to deal with the issue when white supremacy is why we're here today? X, if you got anything for me, brother, because you were fired up yesterday. You look like you're shaking over there now. If you'd like to share your thoughts on this.
Oh yeah, man. So like the first thing about it is I'm not sure which is worse. Are you unironically trying to say that, oh man, this guy just, he just had a bad day, man? Or are you like, I gotta think of something, bad day? I don't know which is worse. Neither is acceptable. You know what I'm saying? Because like, I'm gonna get real personal for a second. I, when I was dumped for, my ex ran off and married her ex after a month of dating, that was a bad day. I didn't murder anybody. When my dad's house was shot up on his birthday, that was a bad day. I didn't go out and murder anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like when I had depression undiagnosed anxiety that I didn't know I had and felt like I was dying from my first anxiety attack, I didn't go out and murder anybody. So this whole thing of, oh, he had a bad day. Oh, he's a lone wolf. Oh, he's a this. Oh, he's a that. Oh, his history. He's. We've seen this a million times before. And it's not just that, but again, the Asian American community has been telling us for the last year, spikes against Asian people has been happening for the last year. And now, oh my goodness, hey, he had a bad day, man. It's absolutely unacceptable that he either fell for this or is using this PR line, because now if this happens again, which I hope to God it doesn't. I say this in like hopes that like I don't want this to happen again. I don't want to have to make these speeches again. I don't want, the people here in the community to have to talk about this again, but they're going to have to, because people like him are running PR for mass murderers. Unacceptable.
Jonathan, you got anything for me, brother?
Well, the first thing that I think all of us recognize here on this panel is that white supremacists are going to cover for white supremacists, and white supremacy is going to cover for white supremacy. It's no shock. It's no shock that this guy who said that this other guy, this white guy who said that this other white guy had just, quote, a bad day, was found out to have been posting or buying or purchasing shirts that called COVID-19 the China virus. So, I mean, like that right there lets you know whose court he's in. I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, maybe he's unintentionally upholding white supremacy in this case. But child, I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole people, but he's a fucking sheriff in Georgia with a bald head and called COVID the China virus. Like, call a spade, folks. It's absolutely diabolical and insidious, the nature of white supremacy. And people sit up here and they say, oh, but like white supremacy, what are you talking about? Slavery ended in 1866, as if the spirit of slavery and the spirit of white supremacy did not find its way in Jim Crow laws and poll taxes and tests, and then the war on drugs. And like white supremacists are going to cover for white supremacists. I want to touch on that NBC article. It was actually NBC Asian American that posted it first, and then I think today or yesterday NBC retweeted or like also posted it. These people are trying to make folks mad because Black and Asian relationships have been at an all-time high in terms of the tenseness, the anxiety between the two. I know this because a lot of my work for the past 15 years online has been standing at the intersectionality of my Blackness and my Asianness. So within the past year, there's a lot of stuff going on many sides. NBC Asian American, I don't know why they did that, especially knowing what's going on, but there are folks with different opinions within both camps when we're talking about Black and Asian. You got people here, like the people here who want to bridge the gap between Black and Asian communities. And then you've got people in the Black community that are straight up ruthless and ignorant and rude, like in baller alert comments, the shade room, I'll name them. But then on the Asian side, if you look at any comment section for Next Shark or Rice Feed or Asians with Attitude, you're going to find the same thing. You're going to find people on both sides that just don't want anything to do with each other. And it's a lot right now. It's just a lot.
I think it was just incredibly tone deaf. Like, it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, okay, I'll give you guys this scenario. Okay, when you are on an airplane and the plane's going down, you know what I'm saying? What do they always say? Hey, your mask has just come down. We need you to adjust your own mask before you put it on, before you try to help somebody put theirs on. I just think it's kind of crazy. And I'm here because I want to be here, not because of an obligation or anything like that. I'm here because I want to be here in this space to have this conversation with you guys. But it's so easy for them to be like, oh man, Black people, I guess you should like figure out how to help your Asian brothers and sisters, as if white supremacy did not cause why we are here today. You know what I'm saying? Like, even the narrative that he had a bad day. People of color on screen, y'all ever had a bad day before? I mean, like, just guessing. Yes, no, maybe a couple. Go ahead.
So this is my thing. A bad day is having your computer delete your homework that you were working on for like 10 hours. That's a bad day. McDonald's forgetting to put bacon on your burger. That's a bad day. Murdering people, that's premeditated. See the difference? Also, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw this post, and it said if a Hispanic person or Latinx person shot a bunch of people, then it's build the wall, get rid of immigration. If a person that is of Muslim descent did that, it's they're terrorists and all this other stuff. If it was a black person, they're a black extremist. But then whenever it's a person,
hold on real quick, Chi. Hold on real quick. Reach out. I understand your pain in this situation, and I'm not going to invalidate your experience, but like I said earlier, this is our fight because we are on the planet Earth together. I understand that you may not have had an ally in that community, but an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And the minute that it stops happening to the Asian community, it's going to happen to another and another and another. We need to get rid of the hatred that is impacting every community regardless, because if we don't abort hate, it's going to kill us all, period. So I understand that you may be upset today, but we don't need that right now. Moderators, I need y'all to clean up the comment section because, like I said, we need to protect my mental health and y'all feelings at the end of the day. Chi, please continue.
Right, but what I'm saying is that whenever it's a white person that does this, they will dig up their past saying, oh, this person was a Boy Scout. This person was, an honor student. Like they'll try to make this person seem like a saint and play the mental illness card. But then when an innocent black person loses their life, they'll say, oh, well, this man, even though this person is 16, this man was being aggressive. He had a criminal past, this, then a third. And it just really shows the double standards of media where it's like you want to coddle one person and give an excuse, but you will make a child face punishments like a grown adult.
Well, the media even said, like, I don't know which site it was. I saw it on a tweet today, but they said 21-year-old kid that went on the shooting spree, and they got dragged because by now in 2021, people are up with it. But again, you don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but it is there. Addressing like what had just happened in the interim right there, there are people out there who have never met an Asian person, and there are Asian people that have not been around Black people. I think that it's part of the it is part of the very difficult conversation that we're having to navigate, especially when you're doing this work. So I don't want to I'm with you, Kid Casper. We're here to build alliances, but I also want to make sure that we're trying to build the bridges with all the Black people and all the Asian people.
Absolutely. I just think that we have to realize that we don't win when we fight each other. And even if we think we're winning because we got an and one on somebody and our rebuttal came a little harder at somebody, that we're fighting in a fight that we're not even going to win or reap the benefits of. White supremacy wins when we stay divided. That was by design. The reason why we all live in different areas is because it is all by design. You know what I'm saying? And I want people to understand that, yes, you may see dysfunction coming out of one community and how they feel about this person, but this is a doctrine that was put in every community to have us go against each other. So, like I said, and I feel for my I feel for beloved in the comment section. We just don't need that right now. Right now, it's not the point to start keeping score and pointing fingers. It's time to take a seat, like this conversation is. Take a seat and learn to sit together so we can learn to stand together one day as a people. So I'm right there with you, brother. I'm right there with you.
So it's interesting that you say that. So
keeping score is exactly what a lot of people are doing. And I mean, I am entrenched in this conversation every day. And I know that I've watched a lot of Maya's TikToks videos. We follow each other as well. And you know, I know that she knows this as well. But yeah, keeping score is a huge thing that it gets us nowhere, like you said. And we need to come up with a way to be like, cut it out, but also like, and it doesn't matter. But I'll let you know what people are saying. They'll be like, oh, like one of them is nobody cares about Asian people until now because it's a white person. But when all the black people are doing it, meaning attacking, beating up grandmas, doing this and that, and yes, we do have black perpetrator after black perpetrator. Oh, it's not a problem then. There's this one graphic that goes around, it's been going around since 2018 about like the different races and the amount of crime. And I just wonder if any of you have seen that. But it says that black people do the most crime against Asians. And then there's a trend that shows that like races do like crime. So white on white, black, black, Latino, Latinx, and then Asian have the largest numbers. But then for some weird reason, black people do the most crime against Asians, with white people 3% right below it. So like this idea of like saying, you know, keeping score, and then black people will be like, well, I grew up in neighborhoods where Asians came in and they started businesses and they're taking all our money, but they follow us around in the stores and they disrespect us. And then they bring up all of that. So, you know, if we want to have the real conversation, then we have to acknowledge what so many people in the tens of thousands are talking about in those, again, those same places that I was talking about. I know that we are here and we would disagree with those sentiments or say moving forward, but there are literally tens of thousands of people in, again, shade room, baller alert comments, as well as these other Asian outlets over here that are using the same talking points. So there is something there. There's something that we should be talking about here today.
Anybody got anything? Oh, sister Jordan.
I actually made a TikTok about this earlier because I've been thinking about this a lot, because when I first made my video after the shooting happened, a bunch of black people were like, I'm not sitting with the Asian community because they never stand with us. And what I talked about today and what I firmly believe in is that all of this is built to uphold white supremacy. They created the model minority myth to put some people at the top. They created Black people suck, essentially, to put us at the bottom, and they pit the two of us against each other so that way we can't form any level of solidarity. So as long as we do this whole tit for tat back and forth thing, we can never have the conversation about the generations of harm that we have done against each other, and therefore we cannot heal long enough to dismantle white supremacy, because that article was not an accident. They intentionally, I think, because there's no other way to be that ignorant. I think that article was intentionally written in a way to point out the fact that, like, oh, hey, black people, you have a lot of beef with Asian people. Here's how you can be a good ally today, just so you know, when realistically, we should not have been brought up in that context, in that format. It is always asked on black people to be the shield, to be the savior. It's like, oh, you experience the most oppression, so you're the ones who speak out the most. You're the ones who help everybody. And as a result,
we got a PhD in getting our asses
right.
Like,
I'm like, I don't want to. We're tired, and they bank on that exhaustion. They bank on us being too tired, and then for us to snap back, for us to clap back, for us to have an attitude, for us to not want to, and that will only worsen any level of relationship that we can have, because it's constantly being asked of us to do that. And so I think all of those things, from the way it's being portrayed in the media to the way that those stats rolled out about black people committing so much X amount of crime, because we never like to talk about it, but crime is related to poverty. Crime is not related to race. Crime is related to poverty. If you make people poor, they will commit crime. You made black people poor, they will commit crime, period. That's that. But they don't want that conversation. They want to talk about it in terms of us being pit against each other, so that therefore we can't build the solidarity it needs to dismantle white supremacy. And so I think that when we have these conversations going forward, when, like, I hear black people saying, like, I've been wronged in A, B, C, D, E, F, G ways. Like, I remember Latasha. I wasn't alive, but I remember learning about her growing up, and I was like, wow, she really shot and killed a 15-year-old girl over a bottle of orange juice. That's crazy. That's crazy. But remembering that part of like some Asian animosity is because of their proximity to whiteness. White people intentionally taught them that, intentionally indoctrinated them that way. That's why some anime characters look like minstrel characters. It's on purpose. They didn't think of that on their own. They were taught that. We put that in communities to tear all of us apart. And therefore, we can't manage to build the solidarity because it's so deep down in our roots at this point. Like, at this stage, we are so focused on, oh, well, they entered Black neighborhoods and followed us around stores, so we got scrappy with them. Oh, well, they got scrappy with us because they shot us during the war on drugs, so now we have to get scrappy with them. And we're too busy going back and forth with each other to have the conversation about, hey, some Asian people were taught to hate Black people because that pushes them closer to whiteness, and whiteness equals goodness. And Black people were taught, hey, you hate everybody who looks white. Asian people are kind of white-ish. You hate Asian people. All right, go at it, because now we're going at each other and we can't dismantle white supremacy. And so all articles are taught that way. The things we read are taught that way. The things that are published in media are all pushed that way to perpetuate these cycles of harm so that we don't go against the big guy, the white supremacy. We just go back and forth with each other. I've been thinking about that all day.
So my brother Sean just came back. So I'm gonna introduce him because this is the first time he's come to the platform. This is one of my fellow leaders within my coalition in my state. Brother Sean, he's a beautiful Black man. He's a Emmy Award winning producer. He out here getting it. You know what I'm saying? Brother, we're just kind of talking about what happened on Tuesday in Atlanta. We're talking about how the narrative of how, you know, anti-Blackness, anti-Asian rhetoric, and even how it's spilling into the media. But we're kind of just sharing our thoughts on the situation. You got anything for us?
Well, first and foremost, obviously my heart goes out to anybody that's been harmed in any act of violence, whether, you know, wherever it is on the planet. It's unfortunate because, you know, America paints this picture that, you know, white supremacy is not the problem with a lot of different things. And, you know, we got this guy who happens to be a white male who went and killed a whole bunch of Asian people. And like, the justification for it not being a white supremacy deal is because he killed a white person too. Like that's ridiculous. I don't know. America has to come to grips with the violence that it's taught people how to have, and then they perpetuate these ideas that, you know, crime is not related to proximity as well. I like how Sister Jordan put it as far as it being poverty, but it's also proximity, right? People commit crimes against the people who they live around because they live there, right? And also when you add economic depravity into that, then yeah, people don't have the space by which to live their lives in a just manner. So yeah, violence and criminal activity can come as a result of that. But it's unfortunate, and it won't change until America has come to grips with the fact that America has taught this violence, and it does not matter who comes to the country, because America teaches them that this violence is perpetuated by people other than white people who keep making the violence happen. You know what I'm saying? Every single time that these people go and do some shit, like they make an excuse for why the violence is not white supremacy, right? It's like, oh, well, he was just kind of crazy, or he was following this specific group, or he was reading this specific magazine. But then the reality is, at the end of the day, all of it is tied together in white supremacy, man. So it is what it is, man.
That's because white supremacy sounds so they don't like it. It makes their white y'all know that white fragility is my favorite salad dressing, right? I eat that up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it exposes it. It sounds too mean. They don't want to admit that it's a problem. Like they want to cling on to the fact that they are not the bad guys. You know, the big white savior complex. They never want to own up to the fact that they are the bad guy in this situation, and they perpetuate and instilled a doctrine in this country that almost a lot of communities have clung on to, but some communities like Black and brown and Asian communities, we don't even benefit from. Of course, the white supremacy ideology protects those communities though. Brother X, you got something for me?
I do. I actually got to add on something to both of y'all, because both of your statements lead to what I'm saying here. It's very I don't want to say funny because it infuriates me, but it's fascinating how the rhetoric, the anti-Asian rhetoric that led to this, that's been happening for the last year, has been perpetuated by the very same people who are acting in direct contrast to what they say they want, to what is, you know, getting back to normal, going out again, whatever, but they'll refuse to follow any kind of, you know, guidelines or whatever. Now, I recognize that this is a little bit of a diversion, but it's like you said, the people who are perpetuating the issue will not address the fact that it is them perpetuating the issue. You know what I'm saying? They're looking for someone else to blame it on because it makes them feel better.
Hold on,
I want to add on to that. I mean,
go ahead, brother.
It's the idea of, like I said, with the slavery thing and how people think that just because it happened X number of years ago or a century ago, that there's not ramifications. And just like the person who just joined, you know, until you answer for the sins of the country, white people, it's going to continue to be messed up. But you get to step back and be like, well, I don't know why the black people are attacking the Asians so much. I guess they just, I don't know why because y'all made the people poor. And now you put the blacks and the Asians in the same community. Of course, there's going to be more crime between the two. And you excluded Asians with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Asians couldn't even get into the country except for the ones that were here until after 1965. So there's a whole 2 generations of Asians missing from American history. Number one. So they're new here, and then when they get over here, you indoctrinate them, as other people have said, with the model minority myth. Oh, you all are the good minority. Why can't the rest of y'all over here be just as good as these ones over here? Of course, that's going to breed animosity. Like I think I said this the last time I was on this podcast. If you are in a situation where you have siblings and your parents are like, your brother is so successful, he's a doctor, lawyer, movie star, actor, all this stuff, he makes $1 million and he bought me a Chanel bag. Why are you a music therapist? I know I said this last time because I apologized to Maya for using her profession as an example. But yeah, I mean, we all know, I feel that like most of us should understand that feeling of someone sowing seeds of jealousy in between 2 people that are not them. Okay, so we need to understand that history and as well as the stuff that is happening in the present is all intertwined, and that actions have consequences no matter how long you wait, and that if things go unaddressed and unanswered, then they're just going to manifest into uglier things. But the blame, we can very squarely point the blame at white people for the way that this country is, forgive me, fucked up.
You're fine. Like I said, I mean, I'll clean up I'll clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up. I already told y'all. And for those that want to come on here in the future, my only ask I ask is that my name is Kid Casper, aka Mr. Lee with Love. We learn to love how to hate. You know what I'm saying? You can drink on this podcast. You can eat on this podcast. Shorty was eating a sandwich earlier. You can smoke a blunt on here. Just don't get naked. That's it. That's all I ask. Just don't get naked. So at a time when we're all tense and stuff, if you can clean up your language a little bit, please do. If not, I understand. I love you at the end of the day. And as my brother says, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. But I think now at this time, in all seriousness, and I say this, and I say this with great conviction, I don't think now is the time to censor yourself. You know what I'm saying? Especially as people of color in this room, in this space, now is not the time to be censoring yourself. I think especially our white brothers and sisters, our allies, they need to hear the unadulterated, unfiltered truth. I mean,
Casper, can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, my brother.
Because as someone who is old enough to have been around in 1992 when all of that happened, I say that things slipped my mind, and I wanted to respond to something that we veered far away from. But I wanted to bring it back to, I guess, the calling out of us men and really the whole internet to why. So I can't see the names. I forgot. Though I think you're in Oklahoma.
Sarah, yeah.
Sarah, okay. So what Sarah was saying earlier, I did not know about your situation in January. I remember, and last time we were both on here together, you had mentioned a situation in January. I had no idea that it was karma. That's how I gained my TikTok following. My little TikTok following that I do have was talking about the fact that this fake Blasian kid came on here and was pretending to be Black and Japanese, and how like, I'm a real Blasian, you can trust what I have to say on any issues that he was talking about. But the question that I have for everyone, the whole internet, is how did this happen? How did he gain 1 million followers while fetishizing people, while being misogynistic, while being the Rachel Dolezal of TikTok? Nobody decided to call him out. Like, we were all standing by. I was new to TikTok by the time I got to know about comments.
Did you just say Rachel Dolezal,
the
dog?
Rachel Dolezal of TikTok, because that's what he was. And I don't want to go in on him, and I have refrained from going in on him. And today is not the day that I'm going to go on him, because number one, I thought, well, he's a young, impressionable person. I watched his little apology video. He said, literally, I hate being black. That's why I tried to make myself Blasian. Girl, and I saw Jordan's face just now, but yes. So I'm just saying, I don't want to like veer way off the rails, but I did want to respond to that because I had forgotten about it. We've gone further on, but like, y'all, we have to do better. We cannot let people get away with pretending to be a thing. I understand, like with the Rachel Dolezal thing, it's a little harder because you will never call some, like I would curse someone out for being like saying you don't look Asian. Like, nigga, yes I am. So but like with the sexual harassment, the pursuing of a minor, the what else did he do? The fetishization. Someone should have been done called that out, and I'm glad that the people who called them out. And I'm sorry that happened to you, Sarah. To wrap it all up, sorry.
Only the way more people found out about what he did to me is the one video of me crying because I had just found out what had really happened, what he was really like, instantly blew up. And I was like, oh, great. So now people get to see me crying again all over the internet. But I'm not going to be embarrassed by that anymore because he really did hurt me at the end of the day. And people are like, and going back to what you said, why didn't people notice this sooner? Why didn't I notice this sooner? I had my rose-colored glasses on, I guess. I truly did care for him. I thought he was doing good for the communities, but really he was doing more harm than he did good. And at this point, when I keep telling him that I don't think that he should be talking about the issues he's talking about right now because he invalidated us so much and he has the audacity to now tell me that he never did he never fetishized me and that, you know, I should have just moved on and that it's not really important, that I want to hold him accountable. I'm not done with this because you have seen how far fetishization can go and how it has legitimately killed these women. So I am holding him accountable, and he is going to have to realize to himself that he did this. He is going to have to admit it sooner or later, whether or not he took down his other apology videos, that he did this and that he has to realize it was a shitty thing, but he has to actually take, what's the word I'm looking for? He has to acknowledge it. He can't just keep hiding behind it, trying to move on when that's just not how this world works anymore. You need to realize the actions that you have done and hold yourself accountable when others are too.
Right. And another thing that he did, in addition to what he did to Sarah, was the added layer is now for me to take it back on the rails since I took it off. I'm sorry. But a lot of his following was built on pretending to be a Black Asian person so that he could speak up for Asian people by being anti-Black as fuck, by throwing Black people under the bus in these very delicate conversations. He would always be like, why are the Black people doing all this?
Hold up. Whoa. Say that. Hold on. Say that one more again. One more time, sir.
This is why I'm so mad that he was Rachel Dolezal of TikTok. Now, aside, because I just learned about what happened to Sarah, and I'm also mad about that. But the reason I haven't gone in on him the way I wanted to go in on him is because, again, I'm steeped in these conversations every day. And this goes beyond just him, but he was with 1 million followers. He represents the people who do such a thing as create dissension between the two races. Okay. And he did it by pretending to be half Asian so that he could speak up as a Black Asian person, speak up for the Asian community by throwing Black people under the bus. Anytime anything came up, why are Black people attacking the Asians so much? This is wrong. And he gained a lot of following from the people that I mentioned from the Asian side of that would be in those comments of those outlets being like, this guy's right. He's standing up for us. He's saying all this stuff. These conversations are much more nuanced than the stuff that he was peddling. Okay. I don't know what he's doing now today. I have not been able to find his new outlet or whatever, but Jesus hold my mule. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm gonna try to reel this back a tiny bit. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I think that this is really, really dangerous, and I think it's I feel like I learned just from history, you know, Hitler, Donald Trump, yes, I grouped them together. How dangerous a certain rhetoric is with, you know, when you capitalize on fear and then you attach a group of people to it. So over the last year, and we've seen this with other instances in the news, like with what happened with the swine flu, where Hispanics were pretty much getting beat up and stuff like that. Ebola, it was turned back on black folk again. But, you know, for over the last, I want to say 18 months, maybe 15 months, in which COVID was weaponized to turn the heat up on Asian communities. And it has gotten so bad that it came all the way from the White House. It wasn't rebuked in any of those quarters. And it actually worked this one time. Republican mindset worked, where it started at the top and it trickled all the way down to the floor, of where you could just adopt this fear-mongering mindset, and now people's lives are going to have to pay for it. I think the scary thing in which, and I think you were saying this, Josh, I think you said it's your mom. The way you described it, and I was looking over old tape, you said that one of your relatives is elderly, looks very Filipino, and that scares you. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yes, my Lola, because she's Filipino, she's my grandma, was on, well, not at the time, but rides the same trolley as the other 85-year-old Lola, not related to me, but just some old Filipino woman that got punched in the head. Because as the result of this, quote, China virus rhetoric that came from the most powerful office in, I guess, the world, at least in this land, in the United States. And it is such a disgrace to American history, but also a very fine indicator of American history, if we want to be real about it, that Donald Trump got in the office and he went unmitigated, and this was allowed to happen, that nobody stopped him, that he was just peddling this BS, and it caused all the harm that it has caused today, from folks being beat up to folks being killed, all because of this China virus thing. And like, I don't know, I think it's been brought up, but maybe it hasn't, but like, oh boy, who did this? Posted a rant on Facebook the day before talking about, quote, China virus and anti-Asian stuff. So like, the fact that they don't think that it's a hate crime, when, and I'm the last person to call a thing a hate crime because I'm one of the people that's like, okay, hate crime means that there was a motivation, or that you found a motivation, an investigation, or a witness, including the victim, heard something that led you to believe it was based on a protected class. In this case, you found the thing. It was his rant from the day before.
Can I?
Go ahead, just retweeting women. You good? Go ahead.
I just really want to touch on some things. I just got like some TikTok notifications, so I was checking them, and I just want to read you guys some of the comments that I get, because this is just what it's like to be a woman of color. So I made a video about how it's really frustrating how these crimes have been labeled as just a sex crime, and how crimes could be both racially and sexually motivated. And in this case, it was definitely. And then I also called on men to call out the men in your lives who are fetishizing women, who are just to call it out. You definitely know somebody who has probably sexually assaulted somebody, because if 97% of women know or have been sexually assaulted, then you know at least one person. And then I'm getting comments like, rapists don't go around announcing they're rapists. I'm trying to be civil here. So when a man says he doesn't know, and you can be assured that it's because he genuinely doesn't, unless he is one. And I'm trying to be civil here. But if you insist on claiming I know a rapist and I'm just ignoring that fact, I sure as hell hope you can present information, demanding that I present information. Another one, this is like another comment that I get a lot, is talking about how stop fetishizing white men and we won't fetishize Asian women. Sounds like a mutual problem.
Ooh, sister,
this is not like the fourth or fifth, like the first time when I started my TikTok, let me help you. When I started my TikTok, I have a white boyfriend. I'm currently dating somebody who is white, and the number of comments that I have gotten about like, oh, like you're such a white, you love white men, and Asian women only love white men, and that's the problem, is like Asian women deserve what they get because they love white men so much. Don't even start with me. I've gotten that exact comment on just that one video at least 4 times.
Don't know who I want to go first. Sister Jordan, you look, sister, your edges was jumping for a second.
Somebody take it from me before I cry, because I'm.
I got it.
Somebody hold it. Somebody hold it.
I got it. I got it. Okay. I need a moment. So, okay. So,
I need a blunt now. Good God.
Like, okay. I mean, like... Now, when you say call out your friend, not only do we mean if they committed a sexual assault like rape, but we should also call out, hey, were you making this woman uncomfortable by saying, like, oh, that skirt makes your body, like, makes your curves pop. Maybe you should also call out when they're, you know, maybe groping someone, like any kind of thing that would make a woman feel uncomfortable, you should call out. It just does not have to be if someone committed a sexual assault. Yes, and jokes. And I think the problem is that with misogyny, they think, oh, I can't say anything now because apparently I'm going to have a case against me. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, if I was a man, you would treat me as your equal, but because I'm a woman and a woman of color, I'm just here to fulfill your sexual fantasies.
Whew, brother Sean, you got who's going? Y'all got my dyslexia acting up. Y'all pointing at screens and stuff like that. Like, brother Sean, you got anything to kind of touch in on this?
Yes, I'm gonna say this, man. This, first of all, that's really messed up. I'm kind of old though, so like I'm from a different generation of.
I don't want to hear that. Listen, hold on real quick. Let me talk about my brother real quick. I'm gonna put him on the full screen. Say, how old are you again, brother Sean?
I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year.
This man is a grandfather. He is the youngest grandfather I've ever met in my life. Like,
here's the thing though. So like what I learned kind of coming up is like, you got to stay away from people who want to lead you into those type of arguments, right? And what I mean by that is like, when you see something happen, some type of violent crime happen on TV, you know, the police kill somebody or something like that, and then the people say, well, I got to see the other side of the video. They're the same people who, when you make your TikTok video, they'll say some cool shit like, well, you missed this part of this thing. Well, I got to see this. Don't worry about them people, man. If you put any energy towards them people who need to see the other side of the video, or who need to tell you what you got going on in your own life that they not a part of, you can kind of do what my mom used to tell me to do, right? Just kind of sit back, right, and then laugh at those people, and then don't engage with them, because once you engage, then it gives credence to the shit that they're talking about. And a lot of times that shit is bogus and stupid and like stuff that people shouldn't listen to at all. But the moment that you give them the opportunity to start speaking, right, and then you engage them in some sort of what you may consider to be an intellectual conversation, or you using some type of logic on this conversation, and they won't use any type of logic model, then what happens is you just kind of end up feeling like you're talking to yourself. So don't even waste your time on them people, man. Don't give them the opportunity. Like when they engage you and then you talk back to them, that gives them the platform to keep talking. Don't fucking say nothing, man. Just like, all right, cool, that's it, and then just kind of move on. You did.
Sorry. I totally understand where you're coming from. It's like, it is exhausting. Like, it's not like, it is like kind of a waste of my time. But the fact that this is like I just got another comment where it's like, sellout Asian women who worship white were justice's fault. You know, and it's just like, this is like a very common thing. It is so disturbing. And I want to pass this off to Jordan.
Okay, I've collected myself. I took a breath. I called on God, and we're back. I think that, number one, to any of my survivors out there, if you need to step away, if this is too heavy, I understand. And I just want it to be known that you have the grace and the space to go and step away if you need to. Because I actually tried to have one of these conversations the other day and I accidentally triggered myself and it jacked up my whole night. So if you need the space or grace, you may take it, because I know talking about things like assault can be really heavy. And I just want to put that out there. That being said, I think there's a lot to be recognized about people who gaslight other people, specifically men who gaslight women about any sexual experience, because sometimes it's not a thing that we can walk away from. Sometimes it's not a thing we can turn a blind eye to. Because the thing about being gaslit is that it pokes at you. It makes you feel like you're crazy. It makes you feel like you're making it up. And in a society that has taught women to be submissive in a way, in the back of my brain as a woman, and I know in the back of lots of women's brains, as I've spoken to lots of women, it's always the idea that like, oh, I'm crazy. Oh, I'm overreacting. Oh, I don't want to come off as too emotional, so I'm not going to make a scene. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And so it's permitted and allowed to grow. And so in the space in which women already feel like we're crazy, men can push and poke and prod until you feel crazy, until things happen, until things spiral out of control. And it is oftentimes up to other men to call out those behaviors earlier, because I think a lot about like, yes, Donald Trump was allowed in the White House saying, number one, being a fascist, and number two, spreading really hateful rhetoric. Like the hand he played in the attack that we saw is insurmountable. And the knowledge that he will never be held accountable for it is deeply upsetting to me. That being said, that man is also a rapist. He's got like what, 1 billion sexual assault charges against him, some from children, and what? We did nothing, because at the end of the day, we allowed him to do that. We allowed that space to exist. We allowed him to have those conversations, those locker room talk conversations that people have. We let those perpetuate. We let those carry on. One of the first men, the guy who really changed my whole perspective on the world, I had my red flags earlier, and I was more or less picking them up as I went along. I was like, oh, he's a nice boy. Oh, he's so sweet. Oh, well, sometimes he's nice to me. Oh, well, sometimes he's this. Oh, sometimes he's that. Oh, maybe he didn't mean it like this. And I picked up my red flags all the way up until I got hurt. And in retrospect, if somebody had called him out sooner, if one of his friends had called him out sooner, because some of these things he said and did in front of his friends, if somebody had been there to call him out, I would not have gotten hurt, because as a woman and as a Black woman, I did not have the power to protect myself in the way that I thought that I did. And I think that there's something to be said about the fact that we will oftentimes be gaslit into oblivion. Like the first time it ever happened to me, I was like, it could not have possibly happened this way. It was all my fault. It was all on me. And then the second time I was like, this was not my fault. This was not all on me. And then after it happened, he was like, oh, well, like you cried, so maybe you should consider journaling. Like maybe you should consider doing that. And I felt like I was crazy. And then I told the police, and they asked me questions that made me feel like I was crazy, that made me feel like it was my fault. The whole system is designed to perpetuate all of these things constantly. And it is up to the builders of the machine to dismantle the machine. And I can give you the tools, but if you don't use them to take it down, there's only but so much I can do here. And I think that is something to be said, as I have seen woman after woman and victim after victim come forward and cry and sob and beg and plead, only for little to happen. I mean, Donald Trump has 42 and he was in the White House. Bill Cosby had 100 before somebody said something, before somebody caught up to it. What about all the guys who only have 1 or 2? What about the guys who, oh, I didn't rape her, and maybe I touched her in a way she didn't want to be touched, but let's just boys being boys, all that. No, because that's traumatizing. That built into the society and the culture of rape culture. And as women of color, we are so much more susceptible to that, which is crazy in a society in which white women are already so susceptible to that. It leaves us in a really vulnerable, broken place, and we need to be willing to have those conversations, because when I first joined TikTok, this was one of the first conversations I tried to have in the Black community, because at the time, the stats for sexual assault was 1 out of every 6 women is going to be assaulted. And that's the ones that have been reported. The number was 1 in 4 for African-American women. And I was like, hey guys, knock, knock, conversation time. And they gaslit me until I felt like I was crazy. I was like, shoot, did it even happen? I was like, I was there. I got the report. I have the police's number. And yet, did it happen? Am I crazy? And all that was built into the conversation that kept me down, that kept our society, our community down. It hurts men, it hurts women, it hurts all our trans friends, it hurts everybody. When we let these conversations persist, we got to shut up the gaslighters somehow, some way, at some point.
One thing that I used to always hear growing up, and I say this a lot, even at like some of my protests and rallies I end up leading, is, well, in regards of like racism. You know, we can end racism in 20 years if we teach anti-racism and cultural sensitivity as early as preschool. That way, by the time that they're an adult, that all the influence and whatever platform that they have that God has given them, or they earned, or was literally just given to them by man, who knows, they can use that space in the right way. The problem is, though, cruelty like charity begins at home. If it's not corrected at home, it ain't never gonna get corrected out of the house, because mom and dad didn't tell me it was wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the problem, is and I want to be very careful how I'm saying this. Like, yes, the people are doing something that's wrong, but the people that have enabled them by not correcting them along the way are also in the wrong as well. And that's in any type of toxic behavior. Any of my sisters want to check me on that comment? Feel free to.
Okay, so I just needed to gather myself for a quick moment, and trigger warning. But, you know, this, and sorry if I cry in advance, like, it's taken me a long time to finally say it for the first time, where I can say it wasn't my fault that it happened. So, for those that don't know, I actually served in the military for 3 years. And someone that took me on as, like, you know, this person I trusted, who was supposed to be my mentor, you know, took advantage of my vulnerability, and then eventually it turned into a sexual assault. And, you know, like, I think the hardest part about it was when I was finally forced to, you know, say it. Like, for me, if it was my choice, I would have taken it to the grave with me, because I never wanted to talk about it, but it was forced out of me. And one of the questions that I kept getting asked when getting interviewed was, well, could it have been a misunderstanding? What were you wearing? Or did you wear something that could have made him think that you wanted something more? Were you loud enough when you said no? So yeah, basically every question that was asked was basically like, was it on me as to why it happened? But nobody ever thought, is it his fault that he did it in the first place? And that's the problem with this, with the whole community of, you know, victims, is that you always look at the survivors and ask them, what did you do wrong? What did you work? Were you intoxicated? When you should be asking, why did you have to take advantage of this person? Why did you think that even after they say no, or even if I didn't verbally say no, if you saw that I was clearly uncomfortable, why did you not think, let me stop? And the problem is that women, from the time we're born, from the time that we are learning to walk and talk, we are told, don't wear this, otherwise guys will get the wrong idea. You can't act this certain way, because they'll think that you're trying to act grown and fast. We are taught that if you like to be conservative, you're looked at as you're a prude. If you're comfortable with your sexuality, you're seen as you're asking for it. But nobody ever holds men accountable. Nobody ever tells men, maybe, just maybe, and this is crazy, maybe you should not take advantage of a woman. If she says no, that's it. She does not owe you anything. She doesn't owe you an explanation as to why she said no. You have to just accept that it's a no. Maybe if men are taught, maybe I should treat a woman with respect and maybe she'll reciprocate that, then maybe it will be okay. Maybe we should teach men, don't take advantage of someone. No one owes you anything at all. And for that person that shot those poor innocent women, if you could not control yourself, maybe you should have just not left your house if it was getting that bad for you. None of those women owed you anything, but you felt so entitled to something that you felt like if I can't have it, then no one can. And for the media to try to say this is a mental illness, no, this is just pure entitlement that never got checked at all.
I don't know. Brother Sean, you had something that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, this is gonna sound a little weird. Can you do that little thing with all the boxes is like I can see everybody's face? I'm gonna say this, man. Like I told y'all, I'm 42, I'll be 43. 2019, I was working for the Department of Defense, an agency in the Department of Defense. And while I was working there, I wore shorts to work one day, right? Because it was fucking hot and I had a heat stroke before. And the closet that I worked in did not regulate the temperature, so I didn't want to die. So I wore shorts that day, and my supervisor decided that, you know, he liked the fact that I was wearing shorts or some shit. So he commented on my shorts when he first saw me. I didn't really pay it any mind because it's just an old white dude talking about my shorts. Maybe he liked my tattoos. I have no idea. Well, about an hour and a half later, he told me and a coworker, well, he told a coworker to have myself and that coworker to meet him at his office. While standing in front of his office, waiting for him to come to the office, right? He approached from my left-hand side and then reached down and said, shorts, and then rubbed my leg. Now, I'm a black dude from the south side of Chicago. He's an old white man. I know what would have happened if I would have punched him. I would have punched him in his head, and then I would have went to jail, because why the fuck would you hit an old white man, Sean? Right? I did every single thing that they told me to do. I went to the people, I filed my EEO case, I did all of the shit the way that I was supposed to do. And then when I went to court, they met me with this shit called the reasonable man statute, which states that if a reasonable man doesn't think that it's an assault, then it's not an assault, right? It says that if a reasonable man would think that that is a joke, then it must be a joke. So when I went to court and I told the judge and the lawyer, I don't understand this reasonable man statute because it's not culturally sensitive, right? It's not culturally competent because I'm an American descendant of captivity. And my great granddad told me the stories about how his great grandfather told him about how white men used to rub the men that worked for them. So if you saying that it was a joke, I have no idea why you would joke with me like this. I don't play with jokes like this with my friends. But for you to just reach out, touch my body and think that that's comfortable, and for the government, the United States government, when I go to court, to tell me that it is a reasonable man's idea that I was not violated, that's a problem, fam. That's a problem. So like Twas was saying, you do have to teach respect. Like Jordan was saying, you got to teach respect. Like May was saying, you got to teach respect. It started at the crib, right? So if you don't learn those tools at home, then it's imperative that your friends will hold you accountable. If there's no accountability coming from your friends, why the fuck you got them same friends? Like, they obviously ain't good for you. They not making you be a better person. How the fuck is these people your friends? So I'm gonna just say, like, I went through that whole situation, right? And I came to the crib and told my wife the first day it happened, and she was just like, well, she didn't know how to feel because I'm a dude from the south side of Chicago. And why would this happen? When she heard the counsel for the agency, my wife was sitting in the room with me while I was doing my interview, my thing with these people. And I asked the counselor, I said, so are you telling me that if a woman got assaulted like the way that I did, you would tell her that it's a reasonable man believes that it was a joke, it should have been a joke? You know, this lady told me yes. That's when my wife understood what I was up against. This shit's unbelievable. And I'm a dude. Imagine if I was a woman. It would have been absolutely no love. That shit's crazy, man. So, like, just understand, we here for y'all. There's a good demographic of males that's in the world that got love for people. right? All I have is daughters. I don't have no sons. I don't have no sons. All I got is daughters. And I'm telling you right now that I talk to my daughters about the type of dudes that they should date or whatever have you, or the type of things to look for in these guys, like them red flags that Jordan was talking about. But at the same time, though, like, people are gonna do what they're gonna do. But it is up to their friends to hold them accountable for the mistakes that they make, because that's the only way that you'll be able to kind of move forward, man, in life. It's getting late though, and I'm old. I love y'all, and this conversation is extremely riveting, but I got to go pray before I go to sleep. All right. I love y'all, and there's nothing y'all can do about it, man. Be safe and just know that you got to move in love, and we here for y'all if y'all need us. All right.
All right, brother. It's unfortunate I won't be able to see you in the streets this weekend, but you know, I appreciate you stopping by, and you were welcome anytime, man.
I appreciate it, man. This is not gonna be my last time on the jank. Y'all be cool.
Better not. Oh man.
I want to. Can I follow up with Sean? Like, follow up on what Sean was talking about. I would thank you everyone for sharing it, including Sean, who has already gone off. Part of this is like, because I have a unique experience that like listening to everyone else talk, I'm realizing that like the thing I'm going through, while not, I guess, not as bad, it's like it's parallel. So I'm part of a very reputable organization. I'm a chorister. I sing in choirs, and I'm not going to say their name, but you can figure it out. And I've talked about it on my own videos. But I'm a part of a very large choral organization in New York, and I'm gay. So there you go. And within that structure of 300 people, mainly white men, and then like a lot of different types of Asian. I'm part of a group called the Gaysians. There are also Black folks in there that I hang out with, and then there are Latinx people, et cetera, et cetera. But even within that organization, we are currently going through, and have been for the past few years, a huge debates on what is and isn't okay. And because gay men, a lot of them are older gay men, and they came up in the 70s and sexual revolution. Oh, like, we're having huge debates over consent between men, gay men. And it's like the younger people, like my age and younger, are like, no, you cannot grab my ass in the bar after rehearsal, or no, you cannot keep on complimenting on my shorts, or no, you cannot keep on doing this. This is wrong. And the parallel, like, that's a parallel, but then the other parallel is like the response you get. It's like, well, this is how we came up. This is our cult. Like, this is the culture, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking of like men who do this to women and are like, well, I don't know any better. And it's like, and then I also think of the parallel of like how people in my cohort and contingent within that group are like, no, no means no. You need to get consent. It's not hard. If you're making someone uncomfortable, then don't do it. Point blank, period. Just don't. And this should be so easy as us as men talking to each other. But still, there's that weird dynamic. And I guess we can chalk it up to the patriarchy then, of just the whole system still being like, even in that situation, you've got this group of people that are like, oh, it's not so bad, and this is how we are. And then you have this other group of people, usually the people of color, with real grievances that if they went public, and I've told them within leadership, I'm like, if I have a list of like 42 things here that I've heard from people within the organization, and if any of this went public, y'all would be shut down, like the people that are within our umbrella of organizations on the West Coast. I'm trying to be very coded because I'm not trying to like get in trouble, but like very similar things happened with a similar organization on the West Coast, and it was in the LA Times and everything. So like I feel, and like I also feel affirmed and validated in what I'm feeling being in that dynamic. Of course, it is not as bad as what women have gone through historically and could continue to go through. But just know, like how Sean said, there are guys out there that do clock it, and there are guys like me and others who are not so blinded by sexual desire that we just fail to hear the rules of like no means no and get consent. Like, for me, I don't understand why it's so hard for people. And I will continue to call people out in my own circles. And I encourage everyone else to do that as well.
Ma, you got something?
Yeah. Everybody, thank you so much for sharing your stories. It's just so, I'm just so proud of all of you. It's really brave. And I really appreciate the men here, you know, saying that they are standing up and they will continue to stand up. I think one thing that I'm noticing a lot, especially within, I don't know why this like happens so often in my comments, in my TikTok comments, especially, it's just like men coming in and being like, well, Asian women love white men and they deserve what they got because Asian women love white men so much. We got white fever. And it's just that placing that onus on women again. And when we talked about this earlier about how it's just so, frustrating to constantly have to like battle this, and it's always men. I don't know why it's always men. A lot of it is a lot of Asian men who say this and come in and say things like that. And it's just so frustrating to constantly feel like I'm like the only person who's like trying to like battle this. And I think I don't really know where I was going with that. I just wanted to share my frustration, I guess. I think that's it. Jordan?
I do have something to kind of piggyback off of that, and it's kind of crazy that this has become a deflection tactic, especially with like right-wing media. And I think this kind of ties into this as well, as far as how we're focusing on the wrong things in these situations. Like, for instance, I don't know if anybody's been catching the news, but we had the Grammys last weekend. You know, what just happened in Atlanta, obviously it's a massacre, it's ugly, it's not pretty, there's nothing that you could say to me to justify it. But we're focusing on the wrong thing again. For some odd reason, they have equated Shibibi. Shit about a Honda. Yes. Okay. So for some odd reason, people are paying attention to the Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion performance and equating. I see Sister Jordan over there. Calm down, my sister. They're equating how there's over sexualization within women's art and stuff like that. Whether it's music, whether it is in physical art. How this somehow is their fault, because we just had this huge display of what just happened at the Grammys, in which I still have yet to listen to the song WAP, by the way. I'm not allowed to. I'm a good Christian boy. I'm not married. It sounds good, probably. I don't know. I'm not going to listen to it. God bless you, ladies. You're doing your damn thing. I think what's kind of crazy about this, and I don't know if anybody else shares this sentiment with me. Well, I think they do, because y'all seem like a good, like-minded group of people. But I think it's kind of crazy that men especially, feel like it's their place to say that what women should do with their bodies and their sexuality and everything like that. And I'm saying this on my platform, and I've said this many times, men, especially black men, because we created hip hop, the genre of hip hop would not have been as successful as it is if we had not commercialized off of degrading and using women's sexuality, you know what I'm saying? Where we have literally built our whole genre off of sexualizing our own women. So I think it's a little crazy when men do this in these spaces and try to shift the blame in a sense by saying, well, if these women weren't so sexual in these spaces, maybe what happened in Atlanta wouldn't have happened. I got two things. One, we are shifting the importance of taking responsibility and accountability to what that monster did in Atlanta. Two, men, we don't have a right to tell women what to do with their sexuality, because then when we tell them what they do with their sexuality, we're pretty much telling them that they don't own it, and that is only pushing the narrative that this is a man's world. It's not helping anybody, and it is gaslighting, as somebody said in the comment section. We need to stop shifting the blame on women, and we need to check men young. That way it doesn't become a problem and a virus in a sense when it's old. Sister Jordan, you had something for me?
I did. I think about this a lot when I think about systems of power, I was a women's and gender studies minor in college, and so this is really like my thing. But I was taught that it's not necessarily about the sex, it's about the power. And I think that we see that a lot played out in our relationship with sex and sexuality, and like when a woman chooses to be sexual, versus when someone decides to sexualize her. So like Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion's performance, they took the power back and chose to portray themselves in sexual ways. And that reclamation of power is more upsetting than them being sexualized in any other hip hop songs or rap music or TV or literally anywhere else, because the issue is with who has the power. And that's why I think a lot of the times you see so many women of color, especially women of color in sex work, who are victims of hate crimes because they lack the power both as women of color, and as sex workers. And so I think we see that a lot when it comes to hate crimes, and we saw that especially in the shooting, because what infuriated him, yes, might have been the sex drive, or might have been the sex addiction. But what really tends to get, because I'm also really into like serial killer documentaries, so like this is really my thing. What tends to upset people more is like the reclamation of power, or the ability to say yes or no, or all those different things. And if he was told no at any point and the power was taken from him, that's enough. That's enough to send someone over the edge as well, over the edge, or have a bad day, I suppose. But I think about the systems of power at play when we talk about who has control in terms of sex and sexuality and desire. And then again, who has the control in terms of like race and class. And they really do intersect on the backs of women of color. And we saw that especially in the attacks on Tuesday. So yeah, it's a power thing, I think.
I think the one thing which is getting kind of crazy is, well, it's not getting crazy, it's just apparent at this point. They don't want us to stand together, obviously. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want men agreeing with men, because then they start questioning a man's manhood. But then when it comes to us as marginalized groups, they don't want us to being able to stand shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm during this time. And I think that's why, for me, and I was telling Sarah about this, like, she was asking me, she was like, what's it looking like on your end in communities? Does it still seem like a divide? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. How about you? And she didn't even have an answer for me. What do you guys think? And this is a question that everybody can kind of answer. What do you think we can do so we, like, as far as like closing in the gap, what do you think you can do, or what do you might have as far as suggestions for people that are trying to navigate in this space where it seems like everybody's keeping score and playing the oppression Olympics during this time? Sister Mai, I got you.
I think one thing that we just should remember is that playing the oppression Olympics game is just playing right into white supremacy. This is like a very calculated move within that system. Keeping us apart and having us like count tit for tat is just playing right into this game, and it's not productive. And I know that it's hard because, I mean, like, when we get hurt by somebody, we want to be like, well, no, fuck you. Like, you don't deserve my help. But like, we really just have to like understand and have some sort of compassion and empathy for the people who are hurting, who are like playing into white supremacy, that's what's going on. And it's not like exactly, I don't want to say that it's not personal, because it is personal, but there's this overarching bigger system that's going on.
Kind of like somebody it's, I don't know, I forgot what game this was, but like it was this old game I used to play back in the day. I'm a nerd, so bear with me. Matter of fact, it was Tack and the Power of Juju, right? You could throw a mango at like this one monkey in the game, and then this monkey makes this next thing happen so they could move on in this course. What ends up happening is something gets thrown into one of our communities, and then the white man or the white modder is just like, oh, this wouldn't have happened if they didn't do this. And what ends up happening is we keep fighting the fact that somebody's pointing in the other person's direction, but instead we're just like, we need to understand why we are divided at this point, and we need to look at the common enemy. And my just completely disappeared off the screen. X, you had something?
Yeah, it's kind of piggybacking off of what Mai said. I say this because I actually had a conversation like this today, or I was listening in on one, basically saying, having that whole, well, I've been in X situation where I was hurt by, this group of people, so like, why should I help them? And it's just like, it's one of those things where it is a conversation to have at some point. It is a nuanced conversation to have. And like, I'm someone who doesn't like having conversation about conversations, but it's one of those things where there is a pressing issue that keeps us from even getting to the point where we can talk about, that tension, because we have people saying, "Oh, WAP made that attack happen," or NBC, the NBC article about how Black people can help your Asian community today. Things like that. It's that type of stuff we have to address, not before we talk about that tension, but like, we cannot use the former to counter the latter. I hope I phrased that correctly. Like, we cannot use the tension to keep us from addressing the main issue, which is people who hate people who are not white.
Sure. Anybody else got anything?
I would say, much like the conversation about, calling out men from being misogynistic, call out the people in your community when they're being discriminatory against the other side. And in my case, I get to do both. So,
Anybody else got anything? Sister Sarah?
Piggybacking off what you said, yeah, we do need to call out people in our own communities while also addressing those in other communities, because we know we all have what you can say weak links, and it's important that we address it and we don't generalize an entire community either. That's not what we're going to do. We can hold the one person who committed the act accountable and say, hey, what you did was not right. But we are not going to judge and discriminate against one whole entire community as a whole.
Sister Jordan, you had something?
Sarah covered it.
Oh, okay. So we're just gonna retweet that. Mel, you got anything for me? Nah. Okay. Now this is something that I wanted to introduce. Because and it's funny that me and Sarah just talked about this last night, and it came off as funny, but I do think that this is absolutely important. The importance of cultural sensitivity, or in other words, just knowing where the boo-boos are at. You know what I'm saying? Like, knowing where the sores and stuff are at. Like, there's some stuff I already know, as far as like, oh, okay, well, don't just assume that I'm smart just because I'm Asian. Don't just assume I know every sport statistic because I'm Black. But I think it's important to know how we hurt one another too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we get taught that, making fun of each other, I mean, especially in the Black community, roasting is like an Olympic sport. You know what I'm saying? But I think that is important to know how we hurt one another, because once we realize, oh, that's how you hurt them, now it's making the conscious decision not to hurt them. And at the same time, calling people out. I had this, and I'm kind of going through this right now mentally, and why I've been feeling numb for the last couple of days. But I think for me personally, I don't really have space in my life for anybody in my life that is not anti-racist. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but for me, it's not good enough to just not be racist anymore. You know what I mean? Because it's like when somebody throws you in the deep end of the pool, and then the lifeguard's like, well, I didn't throw you in there. okay, I guess I'll save you. I'm sorry that you got thrown in the pool and you almost drowned. You know, next time learn how to swim. Like, in other words, build a callus, you know, learn how to deal with this. But we need to be on the offensive side. I mean, the offensive side of this, because racism is as American pie. It's as American as baseball. And I don't know if this sounds crazy for me saying it, but if you're not anti-racist or anti-homophobic, anti-transphobic, anything like I said, my name on social media is Mr. Lee with Love. I learned to hate, period. And I learned to love to hate. That's it. So if you don't hate racism or you're not anti-racism, you don't got space for me in my life personally, because it's not doing any help anymore. It's no good. I don't know if anybody else is on that wavelength with me. X, you got something for me?
Yeah. One of the things that I hear about a lot in terms of like these dealing with these types of issues is the, not exactly phrased in this way, but the overall sentiment that a tolerant society cannot tolerate intolerance. And in simpler terms, if we're all going to get along with each other, we can't deal with the people who don't want to get along. You know what I'm saying? So like this, and whenever you clap back at people who are being racist, homophobic, misogynistic, whatever, you tend to have people who are like, well, don't get so angry, or don't get so this, don't get so that. You're giving them the attention they want, yada yada yada. And it's like, or they could just not say that thing that got the clap back in the first place. Why are you not sending that energy to them? You know, so it's got to be a lot less, why are you so upset, and more of, why are you saying this thing in the first place that made them upset?
Anybody else got anything? Oh, Sister Maya, you got something?
Well, no, I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm actually gonna go because I'm gonna go make some dinner now. But thank you.
You're gonna make your by the way, I'm still eating meat. I just felt like just letting you know that. Gonna go make your appreciate you coming on, like I said. And you know, I'm gonna check. Let y'all all know, y'all all adopted, by the way, that are on screen with me. I figured y'all should know this already, but Sister Maya, I appreciate you coming through, sharing your words and sharing your thoughts and your hurt. You are welcome back here anytime.
Thank you all. So awesome to see you guys.
Sister.
So awesome to meet you all. Okay, bye.
There's something that it's funny that, well, it's not funny. I just think that it seems so practical and easy. And me and Chi might have been talking about this. Chi is twas written over here. But one of the things that we're always saying is, why are we teaching people to be callous instead of just teaching people to not be a dick? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, you know, it's just a cruel world. Well, it got made this way for a reason. It didn't happen on its own. Sister Jordan, Brother Jonathan. Anybody else got thoughts on that? I mean, I don't know if that sounds like too harsh, but I'm being so serious. Like, if you don't hate, I can't have space for you in my life. Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Oh, Sister Jordan?
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm definitely in the same place emotionally, but I use a lot of my platform, especially on TikTok, to educate people, which means I have to have, bless their hearts, a lot of patience. Because what I've learned a lot is that some people are simply ignorant and I hate to say it, but they genuinely don't know any better. Like the other day I did like a mini lesson on Harriet Tubman, thinking that we all knew something about Harriet Tubman. And they were like, oh my God, I've never heard of her. And I was like, I don't know how you made it through public school. But okay. And like like moments like that click for me. It's like, you have no idea what's racist and what's not racist because the system has taught you that you're just not racist and that's good enough. Like they don't know what it means to be anti-racist. They might not have ever heard of anti-racism before. And so my goal is to push everyone towards anti-racism. And then if they're not with it, then I kick them. But as much as I'd love to open up with, if you're not anti-racist from the jump, get away from me, that is not the platform that has chosen me. So I think I live by like the oops ouch model, where like I like ow, but I assume best intentions, and if you do it again, then get out. That's something that they taught me when I used to work as a resident assistant back in college, and it served me well. That some people like say something really dumb, and then I have to go answer I have to like take the breath and answer like a really dumb question, and they're like, "Thank you for not yelling at me. I just like I genuinely didn't know that this was bad. I'm sorry." And so it is the people like that that give me energy to put up with ignorance, because I learned that sometimes ignorance does not come from a place of hate. It comes from a place of the system taught us to be ignorant, and they are nothing but wheels in a bigger machine. And if they start, putting some work into that machine, then they're not welcome in my space anymore. So I do a lot of grace work, I think. Yeah.
I do agree with what Jordan said about maybe it's just they genuinely did not know. But then I also think it also comes from a place of lack of accountability. It's like we have been so conditioned to quote unquote, have tough skin, but it's like, but I shouldn't have to have tough skin if you were taught not to do and say certain things. You know what I mean? It's almost like if we react, then we're seen as the angry Black person just for sticking up for ourselves. But then if another person were to do that, then it's like they're the victim. So it's just, we just have to do better on hold everybody accountable on it. Just, yeah, it's really sad having to constantly told have tougher skin, but nobody ever teaches someone do better, learn, educate yourself. Like, I hope there is a day where people can finally understand why it's bad to say, "Can I touch your hair?" for an example.
Does someone else have something, or can I go?
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just remembered I was having a conversation with a friend this morning, and they were just saying, I feel like we just need to really put a lot of time, energy, effort, money, because teachers don't get paid enough, into education. Because how many times have all of us told a person, no, white supremacy does not, or white privilege does not mean you don't have life hard because you're white. Like, it's it's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like it's like y'all said, there are some people who are willing to change and who are receptive to, oh man, you know what? I thought things were this way, but they're actually this way. And it's not my fault, but I also benefit from it. Okay, I'm going to try and not, fight against that system. There are some people like that. And I feel like investing in education from an earlier stage in life would help combat that and help weed out the people who are receptive and are not receptive, because that's a challenge that I have. I kind of come at it like, if someone just unironically tries to use like 1350 against me, most of the time I'm just like, all right, so you just want to get dusted. But objectively speaking, maybe that's just something they've been told their entire life. Unlikely, but my brain like 3 years ago and now, like my brain 3 years ago wouldn't have accepted that as maybe that's just something they were taught. So I just think, what y'all were saying about education is very important.
I think I agree with what everyone said so far, especially if you're going to do this work, whatever that is, whether we're talking about Black-Asian relations or just being a good person in racism, anti-racism, whatever. There are going to be people who have the privilege of not having to think about that. And then when they do decide to get on the world stage or on any stage and talk with those of us who are veterans in the game, like, we have to be able to clock when someone is truly ignorant in all sense of the word, like they don't know and are willing to do better, and also clock the trolls, people who pretend just for the sake of, especially in this internet age, with an online anonymity, you know, we have to be wary of that as well. But as Jordan said, if we're going to lead conversations, then we have to operate with some grace to give people the space to make a mistake and then bounce back from it. Otherwise, we're no better than the people that are acting against us out of pure ignorance.
So I wanted to share something that I typed up months ago over the summer, and it's something, like I said, I lead this at every rally and try to stress the importance of why there needs to be reform in our system. For instance, y'all heard about what happened with the Derek Chauvin trial? I love how the media try to say it's the George Floyd trial, but anyway, you hear that the city of Minneapolis paid George Floyd's family $27 million. That's the city of Minneapolis. So taxpayers rather not defund the police, and they rather defund the tax dollars to pay for their mistakes. But I think that this is important, and where this money is coming out of, and it's coming out of our education system. And this is something that I always type up and I always say to people. We can get rid of racism in the time span of 20 years if we teach anti-racism as early as preschool, all the way to somebody's senior year in high school, and establish a doctrine, foundation of love, compassion, and cultural sensitivity at home. This can be the last generation. I think what needs to happen, though, is I think we all need to come to grips with we've been taught wrong. And if I could give any advice to my allies out here, don't get defensive when you need correction. With correction comes love. And I'm gonna also say this. I'm not trying to be ignorant, but a lot of y'all like spend hours on Twitch watching somebody else play video games. I think you could read a damn book and learn how to not be. I'm serious. I mean, for real. Y'all will sit there and watch Chad Ochocinco play Call of Duty for hours. You can learn how to not be a dickhead. I'm just gonna say it just like that. And I mean that in all sincerity, because though I am going to lead with grace, and I am Mr. Lead with love, but with love comes correction. Use this energy, use this time, use this downtime. A lot of us work from home. A lot of y'all collected unemployment checks and ain't working. I ain't gonna snitch on somebody, but anyway, take this time to equip yourself with the knowledge, and to educate yourself and die to your own biases. Contradict your biases. Contradict the grain in which that you've been set on in this life, because it starts off small. Kind of like how we talk about how fetishization starts real small and it turns into what happened in Atlanta. Racism starts out real small, where somebody's making a joke in the classroom, but then it turns to a black man with a knee on his neck. And the cycle continues, because then we're just taking that money to muzzle somebody's family instead of correcting the problem and reforming and abolishing the system which needs to be corrected. So it's not my job to teach you not to be racist. I kind of just grew up in this, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's fair that I have to survive in a country a lot of people get to live in. So when I say that you got to do some of the work, we can point you in all the directions we can, and we can give you the navigation system, but you have to decide to take these directions. Otherwise, you're going to keep rerouting, keep detouring, and it's going to take a little longer, and it's going to be a little harder. But come in knowing you know nothing. Come in knowing that you need to learn something, and just grow to learn, and we will give you grace if you want the help. But you got to want to help. That's just my thoughts.
In other words, humble yourself, and they don't want to humble themselves.
Now, let me get biblical on y'all real quick. Those that humble themselves will be exalted, and those that exalt themselves will be humble.
Hey, baby,
You know?
shut.
Oh my goodness.
Can I it was very I don't want to use the word challenging, because to say that I'm challenged in this, situation doesn't feel right. But walking into this, I wasn't sure what to do. And I think I said this a little bit before the live stream even started. It was one of those things where words can't do anything, and you can't money racism to death. So what do you
say that again?
Except
no, say that one more time. Say that again. You can't what racism to death? Say that again, sir.
You cannot money racism to death. So it's like you see a lot of links to like donate to organizations and whatnot, and that is a good thing. But everything we're talking about, the education, the humbling yourself, the listening, that's not a thing that you can just thrust onto people. So walking into this, being an ally, there will be times where you just don't know what to do, and you have to be ready to not sit and wait, but be in a place where I don't know what to do, but I gotta stick with it. Like I don't even know what to add to it. Is there'll just be times where you gotta just be in that space where I don't know what to do, but I will do it.
Absolutely. I think it's the willingness and I know I came with the no Vaseline beat for a second. So let me take my foot off the gas a little bit. My bad, y'all, all in the comment section. I see y'all jumping off. When I say that it's not my responsibility as a black man not to teach you not to be racist, I had to learn how to survive in this country. So when I say this, I need you to understand how Black death and how me surviving in this country means. I learned about Emmett Till at 5 years old, whistling around my uncle, and he told me to stop whistling because if I'm whistling around white people, I might get killed. I was 5. When other instances where you're getting arrested by the police, don't fight back. Rodney King. Instances where people have seen these things in life where Black death, in which I have to somehow navigate in this life. So as time goes on where I have to make sure I use a turn signal, and people laugh at me. I freak out for people that don't use their turn signals because it's serious for me because of Sandra Bland. So I have to learn how to live in a racist world. So when I say that it's not my job to teach anybody not to be racist, I'm basically saying I'm not that I don't care where you are in this level, but understand and empathize where I'm at. Like I have to survive. I'm not asking you to give me all this money. I'm not asking you to start taking this opposition in which I deal with and putting on anybody with fairer skin than me. I'm asking you to just stop giving me this opposition. So when I say that it's not my job as a black man to teach you not be anti-racist, it's not. Because I didn't, I'm fighting in a war I didn't start, but I have to learn daily how to navigate through it. So I'm just saying, with the willingness, with the eagerness, you want to have to learn how to be better. That's all. That's all. So anybody else got anything?
Yeah, so I remember I've been seeing this on YouTube, and there was this clip there's a lot of talk shows, so I don't blame anyone if they don't know this specific talk show, but there's this one talk show called literally The Talk, and there was a scene where Sharon Osbourne and her co-host Cheryl Underwood were talking, and Cheryl was basically calling out like certain racist behavior in the most graceful way ever. And then Sharon, just got offended and said, I feel like I'm being discriminated against and I have a target on my back and being accused of being a racist. And, just basically going off on this woman when it was just like, madam, she was coming to you in a kind manner. There's no reason for you to raise your voice at her. And then she had the nerve to say, you shouldn't be crying. It should be me that's crying right now because you just accused me of being a racist. And and again, she was just like, I'm just trying to tell you why the things that were said could be construed as being racist. And then she said something that made me think. She just started yelling. She was like, well, educate me. Tell me what I did that was wrong. And it made me think like, Miss Osbourne, you are 68 years old. You are married to Ozzy Osbourne. So you mean to tell me with all this years of being on God's green earth and all this money you have access to, you never thought to buy a book and read about history, especially the racist history in the UK that nobody ever wants to bring up. And as far as living in America, you never thought, let me educate myself in a whole nother country about the racism that has taken place. Now, Miss Cheryl Underwood could teach you her experiences with racism, but it's not her job to tell you why the things you're saying is racist. At some point, you should do the research on your own. But apparently you didn't do the research, because then you had your daughter ignorantly say, if all the Hispanics were gone from this country, Mr. Trump, then who would clean your toilet? And I remember hearing that and thinking, clearly she got it from her parents, because if her parents knew any better, then she wouldn't have said that on national television. So at the end of the day, yes, a person can teach you why, but at the end of the day, it's your job as to whether or not you want to continue understanding. And that goes for both sides of the spectrum. Like, I can learn about you if you're willing to learn about me. It has to go both ways.
Hold on real quick. I'm going to say good night to my brother X. Thank you for blessing us today, man. It was amazing having you on, bro. You are welcome on the channel anytime. You calmed down a lot since yesterday. I was you were fired up. I was like, hey yo, I say that because this podcast has become therapeutic to me, whether it's just listening to somebody else's experience or just talking about it, because as Black men in this country, we don't really get the space to talk about our plight. And I appreciate you, I appreciate sharing the space with you, and I appreciate you stepping in this space with me, brother. And you're welcome back here anytime, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, I was happy to be here. And like I said, I don't know if I said this at the beginning or before the podcast even started, but when it comes to issues like these, I get fired up, because calling me naive, call me like, a child or whatever. I just don't like seeing people go through these things. And it just seems very simple to me to, like, not simple, but like the solution. This is the solution. We have it right here and we're over here. You know what I'm saying? So I just get very, fired up about these things, even though I don't have the money or influence or whatever to immediately fix things or immediately, address these things. So I do it how I can.
Yeah, man. One thing I will say, and it's a quote, I have to remember why I am the way I am. James Baldwin said, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to find yourself in a state of rage all the time. I think the one thing that we have to do with that anger is just learn how to use it wisely. You know what I'm saying? And I think you're doing all right. And I think you need to give yourself some grace for being a human being by having emotions, dog, because it happens, man. But hang in there, man. Keep fighting the good fight and keep leading with love, man. That's the only way we're going to win this thing.
You know it, bro.
And to my sister, or I won't say sister because I don't know pronouns. Lotus, if you want, you can reach out to me on Mr. Lee with Love on all platforms. If you want to have this conversation, this is not the first time I talk about anything Black or race. It's kind of my thing. You can reach out to me either after this podcast, and I would love to have a conversation with you. I love to learn from other people, but at this time, I just want to have the people that we have in this space at this time, but you're more than welcome to come on here anytime. Does anybody else have anything? Sister Jordan, dripping in neo soul. Go ahead, Queen.
I too have to head on out, but it was absolutely incredible to meet you all, and this was such a fun in as fun as hard conversations go sense of the word, and it was really therapeutic, and it was wonderful to meet all of you. And I think I already followed everybody on their socials, so we can connect and chat and hoot, holler, and carry on. But it was wonderful to meet you all, and thanks for having me so much. So it's great to meet you.
Queen, it was a pleasure having you and gracing us with your presence. Come in dripping with the Neo Soul and whatever makeup palette you use today. I don't know what y'all were talking about, but you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome on here anytime. You are definitely welcome in this space. Thank you again.
Oh, for sure. I'll be back, I'm sure. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.
All righty. Guys, unless you guys have anything else for us to talk about, I think we're gonna close it out. There's one thing I do want to add. If you do have anything at the end of that, but if you have anything at this time you want to talk about, bring it up. You were on mute. You were unmuted, dog. Go ahead. Brother Jonathan, you can talk, dog.
I don't have anything to say.
Oh,
We've
man,
been
you were
on
like
here for half of the Schneider cut, and that's fine. So I'm just waiting.
You had your finger up. I was confused what you was doing. I was like, is he talking or not? It just got really awkward. I could hear myself breathe in my
Y'all
mind.
are gonna stop telling stories about me on your show. First it's the sound, now my finger was up.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. So one thing I want to do, I guess I'll just close out with this. For people of color that are watching this today and they're gonna watch the playback, thank you for taking the time to kind of ingest this whole dialogue. And for people of color, I just want you to know that it's going to be hard trying to get through this time. This is probably the most stressful time for me to be dealing with this as a person of color. Brown mixed with brown mixed with brown. Yeah, it was really awkward, SD. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like he just looked like he had the church finger up. He was trying to walk through the pews. It was something crazy.
Y'all are not going to lie. My hand is behind my phone, and my other hand is at the bottom left hand of my camera. So y'all are not going to lie on me about my finger being up. What finger?
You had your finger up, dog. You did. You had it up. Anyway, hey,
y'all are not going to gaslight me into.
You just shut up, brother. Anyway, it's all love, man. But one thing I want to close out with this is for people of color, keep your head up. Don't let your crown fall off. For my allies, keep coming into these spaces and keep listening. You know, you're here to retweet and amplify and turn the volume up for us. But know when you're being educated and loved on opposed to being abused out of keeping score. You know what I'm saying? Let's not do that. For our opposition, because I saw a couple of people in the comment section that came in here on some rah Trump 2024. My moderators got swift in the comments. I love y'all. Only thing I can say for anybody during this time is cling on to something. Cling on to something that is going to help you through this time. This is a really difficult time for a lot of people. Mentally, emotionally, people are going through it. We've you know, tears were shed on here. Tears were shed on here, and it was really, really hard for some of the stories that were shared and the thoughts that were provoked on here. But I commend every soul that came on here, and I commend everybody that was respectful in the comment section. But at this time, I want you to make sure you're taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally. And if you have a spiritual connection to the same God I do, keep staying prayed up. Pray whoever you pray to, and just keep leading with love. One of the things I say is, you know, God is love, love is God, lead with love. That's for people that cling on to the book and the cross. I do. That's fine. But love is the one thing, as Martin Luther King said, love is the one thing that can change an enemy into a friend. And one thing I want to say to everybody here is, what do we got if we don't got love? You know, either you could be rich in your love or be bankrupt in hate, and bankrupt by hate. During this time, we need to be more intentional and put a conscious effort into loving one another, holding each other accountable, but holding each other in love, and know that with correction comes love, so we can grow better as a people. Because if we grow better, we know better. This will not be the last time that we have these conversations. It will never be the last time I keep having these conversations. I'm going to keep speaking about racism until Jesus comes back and I can kick my Nikes off and I get to chill out. At the end of the day, I love everybody that came by. I love everybody that even disagrees with me, because at the end of the day, my God sent his son to die for you at the end of the day. And I love you. So always remember, you are beautiful, blessed, and beloved. My name is Kid Casper. Have a good night now.